Hey everyone, this is Kennedy Hawk from the Marvel Champions Monthly Fan Podcast team. Today's card of the day on April 8th, 2021 is I Am Groot. It's also I Am Groot. Let's talk about these two unique cards and figure out what's going on. So I Am Groot and I Am Groot are both event cards from Groot's hero deck in the Galaxy's Most Wanted campaign expansion that just came out last week. In case you haven't figured it out, that is what we're talking about this week. All the Galaxy's Most Wanted cards we can on Card of the Day. So, these two events are uniquely named. One is I period am period Groot, and one is just I am Groot, the sentence. And they do completely different things. Both are superpowers, but one is an attack and one is a thwart event. So I am Groot, all in caps with those periods in there, is an attack. Deal damage equal to the number of growth counters on Groot. They interact really well with Groot's core mechanic, which is growth counters. And we'll talk about that there in a second. I Am Groot is one sentence is also a hero action, but it's a thwart. Remove threat from a scheme equal to the number of growth counters on Groot. Well, Groot can have up to 10 growth counters on him. If we look at his alter ego form, he has growth spurt, action, place 2 growth counters on Groot. So you're really looking for like a reasonable amount of value, right? Uppercut, right, is traditionally a bad aggression card, but it's like a staple aggression card in the aspect. It kind of baselines damage for us. So 5 damage for 4 true cost is bad. So if we could get to 5 damage for 2 true cost, it'd probably be pretty good. If we could get to 6 damage by having 6 growth counters for 2 true cost, now we're really cooking. So we want to get to this threshold of like 4 to 5 growth counters for the attack. And for the thwart, it's even a little bit more, right? 4 justice can remove 2 threat, 4 threat for 2 resources or 3 true cost. Here we're paying 4 true cost, so we expect to be a little bit more than 4 threat removal. So you want to be around that 5 growth counter, maybe 6th growth counter range to really get the advantage of these two amazing events. So you can get growth counters in alter ego, but you can also lose them in hero form with Florida Colossus. It is a forced interrupt, so when Groot would take any amount of damage, whether defending or not defending or indirect or direct, remove that many growth counters from him. For each growth counter removed, prevent one of that damage. Great for keeping Groot alive. Horrible for keeping lots of growth counters on your character because it is forced. And because it's forced, that means if you have a conflict of timing, let's say you have a forced interrupt, but you also have an optional interrupt like energy barrier, you're going to be forced to take the forced interrupt first. So if you have growth counters, you're going to have to prevent with those before you do with energy barrier, which is really annoying. So how are we going to get growth counters on Groot? There's a couple ways we can do that. We can get those growth counters in his alter ego and then keep them there. And there's a lot of good protection cards that are good for that. Cards, I mean, you could just use your inherent 3 defense, right? If you're taking less than 3 damage, then you're not losing any growth counters, but you're also using your hero activation. If you use Never Back Down, you pump yourself up to 5 defense. If you take no damage, which you probably won't, because even if you lose a counter, you're taking no damage, you're going to stun the enemy. That prevents the next attack from hitting you, which keeps more growth counters on Groot. So I think that's one way to do it. You can pump your defense with Armored Vest, and you can look at tough cards. There is one card in Groot's hero kit that we're not going to talk about today that can provide a tough status, but also Perseverance. If you're going to spend a lot of time flipping back and forth early on to get those growth counters built up, having some tough on you along the way is not going to hurt too bad. So next, the next strategy I would recommend is chump blocking, right? Everybody loves to chump block. Allies that cost 2 and less are ideal for this, so Squirrel Girdle, Maria Hill, Ironheart, Quake. None of those allies are trait locked. You don't need to have the shield trait or the Avengers trait or the Champions trait to make them useful. So you can get an activation out of them, you can get their Enters Play effect or their Quake's response, and then you can chump with them, preventing the Groot from losing counters. If you really want to be cheeky, you can run Ready for Action. Paying 1 for Ready for Action puts tough on, let's say, Squirrel Girl. She can then chump for an extra attack for you, which is going to let you build more and more growth counters on Groot. Eventually, you won't care about chumping with those allies because you'll have 10 growth counters and you'll be slamming around. I'm not going to go through every card in Groot's kit, but he has lots of other ways to add growth counters as well. Like he has this attack here, Root Stomp, 2 damage, or 2 cost, 3 true cost for 5 damage. If it defeats an enemy, place a growth counter on Groot. So you can get growth counters in ways other than just going to alter ego, but that's like the primary source to start the game out. It is important to note when you flip to Alter Ego, you're basically getting 4 growth counters, because when you flip from Hero to Alter Ego, you can add 2 to your card. You're probably not going to take damage in Alter Ego form outside of some weird circumstance, so you're getting 2 more at the start of your next turn. So you can jump yourself by 4 every time you flip down, sort of. So if you put 2 on yourself at the beginning and flip, do a chump block, flip down, you're going to be 6 next time you jump to hero form. If you chump again, and that's every other turn having a chump available, you're eventually going to be up to 10. It's going to take you 5 turns to get there, but it's pretty fun when you do. So, what are some rules mistakes and strategy mistakes with I Am Groot? You got to not forget that that hero ability is a forced interrupt. So you are going to be forced to do that if you are taking damage. It is not optional. There's no way around it other than toughness cards and having Groot just not take damage. Look for ways to gain growth counters and keep them. Gain growth counters. Oh my goodness, it is early. Look for ways to gain growth counters and keep them. We're talking about defending, we're talking about chumping, and we're talking about avoiding damage with things that aren't forced interrupts. Pinpoint strike, energy barrier, unhelpful. Preemptive strike, very helpful. Never back down, very helpful. So there are ways that you can prevent that damage, it just has to not be with a interrupt ability. And don't forget, I am/you are Groot. What's your favorite card from Groot's Hero Kit? Let me know in the comments below, and tomorrow we'll wrap up Galaxy's Most Wanted week with one more card discussion. My favorite card from Galaxy's Most Wanted, and we'll see if you all can guess which card that is. Thanks, and have a great day.